Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the principal's office. I am so glad to see you. My name is Jamal Maxim. I am an igniter of champion leaders. I help aspiring leaders lead like a champion. I help those teachers who want to get out of the classroom, make that shift, and go to the principal's office and stay there so that they can lead with passion, lead like a champion, and be successful and have a positive impact on student achievement. And so this is the time where I normally share like a power tip, as I've been calling it this week in conversations. But I share a tip to help you and to empower you as you do what you do on a daily basis. And so today, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about school culture. Right now, students are in the building, and even though it's October at the time of this filming, students are not used to being back in the building. Even though they are back, they are still dealing with the challenges of being back. They enjoy, seeing their friends and getting out of the house, but the behavior still has to be adjusted. Now, one of the things I know is that you should always take the time to teach the expectations and set the culture for the school year. However, there is a way to build your culture in such a way where it extends beyond your school building. Because one of the things we have to think about is, are we setting the culture for the hours they are in the school building, or are we helping them to grow and mature as individuals? Because when you think about it, we have to do our part. While we can't replace the parent, and it's not our job to do what the parent does as an educator, but we have to make sure we do our part in helping students learn how to make good choices. Telling them what to do to avoid punishment or avoid a consequence, that's one thing, which really isn't effective. But teaching them what to do and how to make decisions and why those decisions are important is another thing. Okay, so we're going to talk about PBIS, and we know PBIS means positive behavior interventions and supports. And so a lot of people, especially if you're here in Ohio where I'm based, you go through PBIS training and they tell you to choose 3 to 5 words, and you come back and then you try to implement it and say, we are this, we are that, and we are this, in order to identify and set the culture of your building. But what I have found, which is a totally different session, which is one of the things I teach in my master classes, is that a lot of times people go to the PBIS trainings and they struggle with how to implement it with the tools they have, because PBIS is like a big umbrella and there are multiple pieces that fall underneath that umbrella. And so I have seen people throw out one good strategy that works in the name of being unified in PBIS. But no, there's a way to blend and make everything fit. Because when you choose your 3 to 5 words for PBIS, it does not mean you cannot use other strategies that are individualized for each classroom. Because there is a strategy you should use in your class, the teacher should use in the classrooms, in order to teach expectations for every single activity that's going to occur. Students should know how they should behave during group instruction, during group work, and partner work, or direct instruction, or during stations. They should know what's expected of them when they engage in those activities. And sometimes the way PBIS is approached, it doesn't address those, or it makes it an extreme stretch for a teacher to explain it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about how you can let me just take this background off of here, how you can focus on teaching and establishing a culture beyond the building, which is what we're talking about now. But I wanted to set the stage for those different things by explaining that, because it's important that the more you understand what I just said, the easier it'll be to approach these things in terms of positive behavior intervention and support. Okay, so we know PBIS is positive behavior interventions and support. Now, in order to create your culture, you have to do the one basic thing. You have to choose the 3 to 5 words that define the DNA of your school. Now, you want to make sure that these 3 to 5 words reflect conduct as well as refer to academics. You do not want your 3 to 5 words to be behavioral only, because the culture of your school is more than how people act, is what is felt. It's also how they approach instruction, the mindset and the perspective of learning. So how do you want students to approach learning from their teachers, whether they like the teacher or not? And so you want to make sure that your 3 to 5 words define the DNA, but reflect conduct as well as academic approach, okay? And so that's the first thing, and that's standard in the training. But here's the part I deviate, where I add some stuff. All right, so those 3 to 5 words should be easy to define, because if depending on your grade level as well, if you're in elementary, if a kindergartner and first grader can't understand what they are, then they're not good. And if you're a high schooler at the high school level trying to use the same 3 to 5 words that the elementary school is using, that's a problem too, because they need something more mature. So they should be age appropriate and easy to define and affirming. And I say it again, affirming. These words should be like a positive affirmation, that when the kids say, I am this, I am that, I am this, it is like they are repeating an affirmation about themselves as well as the culture of the building. Because you want to make sure that every opportunity you have, that you are allowing the students to engage in some type of positive affirmation where they can speak something positively over themselves, over the classmates, and over the school. All right. And so the next thing is this. You want to speak with the parents about their values. Get to know the parents of the kids you're serving. Don't assume anything. Speak to them about their values and allow them to define what it looks like for them. Because a lot of times people will say, yeah, I talk to the parents, or the parents will say, yeah, I want my kids to be good people. I want them to be honest. I want them to be fair. And it may seem very simple, but in a parent meeting, you can ask them to define, what does that look like for you? What does that look like in your household, in your home? Because when you have that, it gives you information for how you can frame and how you can help the students connect the behavior at school with the behavior at home. Because if you're not careful, students know how to turn it on and off. They know how to switch. Some of the students in some areas come from single family homes, so they know how to act one way with mom and another way with dad. And so they know how to switch. I'm going to act one way at school, one way at home. While that's a reality, because everybody acts differently in social settings than in a professional setting. However, making the right choices or learning to make the right choices should transcend settings. I should do the right thing when I'm in a professional setting, just like when I'm in a personal setting. It doesn't mean my values don't change, just how I am in that environment change, meaning I might be more relaxed or so. Okay, so I hope you're getting the point. All right, so speak to the parents. Now, you want to make sure that you think beyond incentives to keep it from being purely transactional. Incentives are good motivators, but what about when nobody's looking? Integrity, we teach integrity is what you do when no one's looking. So your incentive may be a good motivator. Yeah, I'm doing this so I can earn dojo points, or I'm doing this so I can go to this dance or get this ice cream party. But when there isn't an ice cream party or a dance to go to, you still want them to make the right decision. So while you may have incentives in place, you want to craft and frame what you are doing and think beyond the incentive. How do I want them to act? What choices do I want them to make, even if they weren't incentivized? Okay. Now, these are not in any particular order, but they're flowing pretty good. Now, here's the next thing. You want to model, teach, and reward the desired or wanted behavior. Now, here's the ninja tip that is super key at the bottom. Talk about what it looks like in real life scenarios. They have to know what you're saying is not just for school, for the school building. They have to know what you're saying actually works in the real world and applies to the real world. Because sometimes students will think school is a totally different world than the reality that they actually live in. So you have to talk about real life stuff. Now, I'm not saying be controversial. I'm not saying be political. But I'm saying talk about real life stuff in the context of teaching these social emotional standards and how to make decisions, and in the context of teaching making the right choice, which should refer back to your 3 words of the culture of your building. Okay, so talk about it in real life stuff. And then here's our next tip. You want to make sure that you allow behavior correction to be a teaching moment, along with the natural and real consequences that occur. Now, you got to talk about what it looks like in real life scenarios, but when you are correcting behavior, it's not a time to be punitive or anything like that. Also, it is exactly not the time to be so soft that you forget to give a consequence or can't give a consequence because you don't want to seem punitive. I have seen, in terms of correcting behavior in schools, I've seen them go from one extreme to the next. They've gone from being super punitive, where every time a child made a mistake, they were getting suspended, or lunch detention, or after school detention, or in elementary, you're losing your recess. I've seen them go from that to the opposite extreme of punitive measures don't work, and so every time the child did something, we're going to have a conference, we're going to talk, you're going to tell me your feelings without any real consequence. Now, I want to tell you that you should be somewhere in the middle of that. A lot of times I see people go from one extreme to the next, and most of the time the best course is right in the middle. You want to make sure that you are allowing kids to have the natural consequence, meaning you clean up what you messed up. If you had started a food fight in the cafeteria, you're going to help clean it up, that kind of thing. Of course, that natural consequence. And then you do want to talk to them so they can make better choices and not do it again. But then also there is an additional consequence that probably needs to happen, and whatever you deem fit for the moment, because if they were doing that anywhere else, it would be a different kind of scenario. And so you have to let them know the realities of life while teaching them, showing them grace, and helping them to learn to do better. Okay? So I'm hoping all of you are getting this, because I am going a little above my time, but I want to make sure that you get this, because it's essential, especially right now. Now, here's my next tip. Honor adults and students in front of each other. Now, when you honor the adults in your building for who they are, and not just what they do, not just because of performance, it creates this atmosphere of appreciation and honor and value of each other. And then when you honor the teachers and honor the students, it just, everybody feels important and valued, because it's a culture of us appreciating and valuing each other. Now, I say that you want to appreciate them for what they do, but honor them for who they are, because there's a difference. Because the student that might be struggling with performing and with their grades and with their studies, they need to be honored for who they are, for the decisions they're making. And if they're making bad decisions, and so they might be misbehaving and struggling academically, you find something to honor them for. That way they can feel affirmed in who they are and understand that their self-worth is not tied into performance, which is essential. And when you do that you model that by doing it for the teachers first, because the self-worth of the teachers and the adults in your building is not and should not be based upon performance. It should be based on who they are. But then you appreciate them for their performance and celebrate their successful performances. Okay? I hope you guys are seeing the difference with that. Now, let's keep it going. The next thing, teach expectations for every activity in and outside of the classroom. And so one of the tools that I used when I did that was something called Champs. And it taught, you could use it to teach expectations for every single activity, group work, whatever. You want to do that. And then you want to have expectation stations for different places around the building, as well as outside of the building. You know, if you have a playground, or outside if there's a busing situation. But then teach those expectations. Like here's how we act when we're on a field trip. Now, all of that relates to the school life, but how you make it transcend is this ninja tip at the bottom. You teach the what, the why, and the how it impacts them. You teach them the what, why they should behave this way, and how it impacts them if they behave this way and if they don't. Because when they know the what, the why, and how it affects them, it'll help them understand when they're in a situation or in a similar place or scenario outside of school, not with a school teacher. They'll think, well, when I was with Mr. So-and-so, I thought about if I did this, this is why they told me not to do this. Because this may happen good or this may happen bad. And so they may use that same reasoning outside of the school to make good decisions. Because if you teach a student not to believe or try everything they see on social media, you won't have to worry about them trying these weird challenges that are on TikTok right now, slap a teacher, vandalize a building, and all of that stuff. Because they've learned that some of that sensationalism that's on there is not wise for them, because it is a poor reflection on their character, poor reflection on their parents, and it could cause, there are consequences such as, monetary and all of that. And so if you teach them, they will learn, because that's why they're there. Now, here's the next one, and we're winding down. Relate the expectations to the behavior in the community. Again, the what, the why, and how it impacts them. So when you teach them how the behavior that they are learning relates to how they are just in life in general, but how they are in the neighborhood, in their community, with their family, it'll be essential and it'll translate. Because remember, you talked to the parents before about how they define the values. All right, here's the next one. Conduct morning meetings. Then have a way students can share how they are feeling after that time. Especially right now, with so much stress, so much pressure on teachers, on students, on a lot of people in education. Those morning meetings are essential to, one, learn these behaviors so they can transcend the school, but also have an outlet for them to express how they feel, to have those emotional and establish those emotional and mental connections. And then you want to make sure that after morning meeting is over, or class meeting, that there's an outlet where if they're starting to feel overwhelmed, they can take a break, where they can take a break either at a space inside of the classroom, or they have a trusted adult or a grade level partner where they can go to that next different classroom and talk to the adult, or even just sit there and take a break. I had students who would come take a break with me as the school principal. And I was fine with that. I would just talk them through whatever they were feeling, and then they would go back. And most of the time it was only 5 or 10 minutes. So it's not like, oh, if I do that, the kids are going to skip. No, they're not. Not if you teach them that this is a way for them to deal with the pressure of learning, as well as the pressure of what's going on. All right, now here's the next one. Share those strategies that you're using that are applicable with the parents, so that they can use them at home, and find out what the parents are doing at home so you can use them as well. Okay, and so the students should see this will allow them to see the connection between home life and school life, because certain incentives, certain rewards, certain things that you're teaching, that you're doing in the building, the parent may want to reinforce at home by adding it to what they do. So it's very essential that you do that, and it shows that connection. Now, I believe this might be the last one. You want to make sure that you are consistent and you are fair and you ensure equality. Equality is a big thing right now, because we know, and I want to remember, there's a difference between fair and equal. Fair is not always equal. And so we want to make sure that each student is treated with equality, but also treated fairly. Now, the difference is sometimes in order for things to be equal, you have to deal with the differences and needs of each student. All right. So, and that was the last slide. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you to help you. Remember to like, share, and comment on this video. Now, if you need assistance, and like I said, I took a little longer. Normally my tips are only about 10 minutes, but I took about twice that amount of time because it's so essential, and I handled this like a mini masterclass. Now, if you need help really tailoring what I just said to fit your school, your building, your situation, get a session with me. The link is on the bottom of the screen right now. You can click it, schedule your session with me. We can do it virtually or over the phone, and I will help you apply these strategies so you can build a culture. Because one of the things that I recognize is we never know if a student's going to be out, or if you may have to do another shutdown, or just in general to help with behavior outside of your school building. Here's how you can do it to create that culture, that when people see the students from your school, they know, hey, so-and-so goes to so-and-so school, not because of anything negative, but because of how they carry themselves. Okay, so that's it for this week. I want you to lead like a champion. I want you to be successful. Remember to reach out to me, and I will see you next week. Now, for those of you who are on Clubhouse, join me in about 20 minutes on Clubhouse so we can continue this discussion, and I want to hear your ideas, your ideas of what you are doing to build school culture. If you're not on Clubhouse, feel free to comment, to paste something in the comments, and then I'll respond. All right, see you next time. Lead like a champion. Bye-bye.